Welcome, welcome. I see folks starting to trickle in. We'll give it just about another 30 seconds as folks come in and we'll get started. So welcome. Glad you're here. Welcome to the Ramp and Rillet webinar on accounting AI. We've been planning this for quite some time. It's very kind of, like very topical. And just, yeah, it's really exciting to get this started. I see folks coming in. Really excited. We've got Javi and Audrey here today. I think we're going to have a lot of fun and also a lot of good, like interesting insights to share as well. So I'll kick off real quick. So the topic for today is accounting and AI. My hope is that today that you get some good like tactical insights of ways you can apply like AI today in your accounting and finance roles, and then also maybe hear like some interesting ways other folks are applying it as well. So if you are using it actively today, the chat's open if you want to share kind of how you're using it in your role. Would love to kind of get some insights from everybody here. So real quickly, I want to introduce myself and the speakers. We've got Audrey Carroll from Ramp here on the Ramp accounting team. And so she's been at Ramp, one of the earlier employees, really has like seen the company scale to its kind of massive today and also kind of day one there at Ramp at the same time. She was also at Peloton, got to walk Peloton through their IPO and kind of see that scale there. And then was also at EY before that as very kind of traditional auditor, kind of learning the nuts and bolts of accounting. I'm sure many in this room kind of very similar, started careers in audit, scaling up. So I think we'll have some good insights there. And then we have Javi Cortez, the CFO at Lang.ai. So Javi spent some time really early on, both at Flexport and Instacart, kind of scaling those businesses. And is now really in the weeds, and not just a company that, is bolting AI onto the side, but is actively like building and implementing that in their products. My name's Steven. I'll be hosting this today. I'm the head of finance here at Rillet. If you haven't heard of Rillet, we're think like the next gen NetSuite, kind of NetSuite we're built today. It's kind of all the things you like about NetSuite with none of the downsides, as we like to say. So multi-entity, multi-currency, permissions, approvals, all the good stuff, in a kind of modern software stack. So let's go ahead and get this started. I'm really, been really excited for this. We'll start with you, Javi. Want to talk about kind of your background a little bit. Is that you went from, kind of very operational heavy businesses, kind of Instacart, Flexport, lots of physical goods, moving physical goods, and then kind of moving into the AI and software space. I'm curious kind of what prompted that move, and then maybe what's like interested you or surprised you about being in SaaS now today.
Well, thank you, Steven, and welcome everyone. Super happy to be here. So, yeah, I mean, before Instacart, I spent as well 13 years in public accounting, doing a lot of audit, and then I moved a little bit on consulting. My dream was to be an operational CFO at some point. So I was lucky that I joined very early stage at Instacart, where we were just like 100 people. Became head of finance, and realized how important accounting is for everyone in the company, and not just the company itself but investors, etc. After that, joining Flexport was another great run, growing a lot and going through pandemic on the global supply chain. And at some point I thought it was gonna be a good learning experience for me, and try to put myself in an uncomfortable space where joining a smaller company and try to be just like a pure CFO, and like again operational CFO that I think is very valuable these days, and being able to actually be on the weeds and really understand everything, like end to end, all the processes, right? So that was very interesting. So that's why I joined a smaller company, and yeah, still grounding and super happy.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I like the smaller company as well, is you get to have a lot more like influence and impact, and just really like get your hands dirty in the details. Audrey, I want to jump to you real quick. You went from kind of Peloton IPO, much kind of larger company, and then joined Ramp early on. What did you find like the differences, Stevie? Maybe culturally, but like especially from an accounting perspective, how's it different
Yeah,
going public to private?
yeah, definitely a lot of differences. I mean, with a publicly traded company, the bar is set high. You have high reporting requirements, tight deadlines, really strict controls. So it was really important for us. Like we had no wiggle room with our month-end close deadline. Like 5 days, you needed to be closed. You needed to have your 10 Qs, 10 Ks completed within a certain number of days. There was no room for errors. And so it was really important for us to find efficiencies and automation in our month-end close process so that we could meet these deadlines. At Ramp, I'd still say we hold ourselves to that same bar. We do have reporting deadlines for investor and management reporting. We do want accurate and solid financials. And so, we're kind of acting as if we were a public company while, we're still in this growing phase. So AI is and automation is extremely important for us as well. Month-end close is only a portion of our day-to-day jobs. And so the sooner we can get that over with, we can move, to more project-based work. But yeah, so definitely, we're operating in that mindset of a publicly traded company without actually having those rigid deadlines.
Yeah, it makes sense. Without the pressure of a 5-day close. Sounds nice.
We're working towards it. That is the goal, the faster the close, the more we can spend time elsewhere. But
Yep.
it is, we're working through, the kinks now and finding the ways to bring in AI and automation. And so it's nice to be able to have a little bit more flexibility while doing that.
Yep. Yeah, no, makes sense. Maybe you can jump into that real quick. How are you using AI today in your accounting workflows?
Yeah, I mean, I'll do my best to not only talk about Ramp on this call, but Ramp is a finance automation platform that's dedicated to, helping businesses save time and money with a variety of tools, everything from corporate credit cards and expenses to bill payments and accounting automation. And so I'll hone in quickly on kind of the bill pay product. And I think every business today should be automating their invoice processing
For sure.
work. And so with Ramp, for example, we can, invoices are taken from our Gmail accounting inbox and immediately sent to the Ramp platform. Before our AP specialist even logs into the platform, a draft invoice is already created.
Nice.
And Ramp has scanned that invoice, pulled out the important, invoice information. First of all, it's even identified, is this an existing vendor in your platform or a brand new vendor? And then it's already pre-populated invoice date, due date, expense lines, amounts, GL account and department, because we've already maybe set that up on the vendor record itself. And so it's matching it to an existing PO. The list goes on, but that is saving our AP specialist so much time. Within seconds, that invoice is already, prepared, and she's just reviewing it and submitting it for approvals. And additionally, we're reducing human error, human inputs. We're also catching if maybe we submitted a bill twice by accident and Ramp is identifying, hey, this is a duplicate. And so now we're not, double paying or overpaying our vendors. So that's one way, Ramp is helping us. Like, we do use Ramp at Ramp, but it really has saved us a lot of time during our month-end close. And I mean, a few other examples, a little less accounting specific. I do think any business professional can leverage a tool like ChatGPT. I'm using Chat to help create meeting agendas or templates for memos and accounting process narratives. And, I've spent a lot of time with formatting and organizing a letter or a memo. And today, like ChatGPT can do that for me. And then I just am really spending the time, adding in that critical business, information. And then one last kind of fun thing that my team is using AI today, Zoom calls, Zoom meetings. Gone are the days that somebody on the team is actually note taking on that call. We're using AI to document all the notes, all the open items on that call. And so now everybody can be present and contribute to the conversation. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned real quick, you mentioned like the memos and stuff. What specifically like accounting memos have you found help, with like the technical stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we'll definitely hone in more on this, on the call, but I do try to test ChatGPT a little bit. What is it giving me sound and solid accounting guidance and regulations, and helping me kind of prepare, an accounting memo to support our accounting treatment for, say, revenue recognition. Give me, I'll enter into Chat, using these reputable sources, FASB, IRS, give me ASC 606 accounting guidance and summarize it for me. And I'm leveraging, Chat to kind of help give me that base for these accounting memos or these, accounting process documents. I think it's taken a little bit of time to just trust the output and making sure it is, reputable information. But I do try to ask for it too sometimes to actually include real excerpts from the guidance. So, I can actually see where it's taking this information from, fact check it. But it really has just saved a lot of time with overall, formatting of these documents, making sure I'm including the right type of points. But then also kind of giving me the summarized, guidance and some of that information. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's awesome. Makes sense. Javi, same question to you. Like, how are you using AI today in your accounting or just general kind of workflows?
Yeah, I think Audrey touched on, many of the things that I was gonna say, right? But I think I will start um with your guys' companies, right? I mean, there's a lot of companies right now out there that I will advise everyone to check them out, not just Ramp and Relay, but there is many companies out there that they're using AI to make accountants and finance teams much more agile and being able to actually do a lot of the work to Audrey's point, right? Like the manual work that can be outsourced. You can just use tools such as Ramp and Relay to make them work so you can really focus on the most important things, right? I think that the finance team is a critical piece in a company. So the more time that we spend really thinking through, what's happening with the company, how we can actually move the business forward, that's the best time that we can actually use, right? So at Lang, we do use both Ramp and Relay, and definitely there's a lot of time saving, right? And I think the three areas that I think they're important, right? One is finance operations, right? Like we talked about AP, with Relay, we talked about all the automations on AR. There's companies like Tesorio that they're like, like cash flow management. So all those companies are so helpful because, like as Audrey was explaining, right? Like there is minimal manual integration where you get, invoices in your email, they like get populated, you can actually pay, they tell you if there's duplicates, same thing with Relay, right? So I think like my first advice is go out there. There's a lot of companies doing a lot of great things and they're not that expensive. So I think the ROI is there. I'm a big believer that there is always explanations on why we have to hire people, but there's less time expending. Why do we have to, I hire the right SaaS companies? So I will advise for that. The second thing is probably the technical accounting, right? I mean, I don't think there's too much, when I was at PwC, we used to do, we have these big books where we have to read like the latest on the SEC reporting, like PCAOB.
Yep.
Right now, I think it is very useful to just go and, like if you understand a little bit of prompting, what it is, what you're looking for, and we'll give you the answer, not just to draft the memos itself, but if you have a question or like, how would you do this journal entry? Because, like some complex journal entry, I think is very useful. And going back to the trust, right? We talked about this before, Steven, right? But I trust, but I verify, right? And I do the same with AI than I do with my team, right? Like it's just like I treat AI as another employee. I will not just take it for granted and send that information without having a review process or a control in place to make sure that I do understand and I feel it's
Yep.
right. So before that, if you have the controls in place, I think you can trust with a risk tolerance anything that comes from either ChatGPT or I use cloud as well very often. So and I think that the last one, we talked about technical accounting, we talked about financial reporting. I think I mean financial operations. I think financial reporting, like from anyone. I agree with Audrey as well. Like you don't have to wait to be a public company to close your books in 5 days. That's
Hmm.
hygiene, that's best practice, and I encourage everyone to do it regardless of what was the stage of their company. And the same thing with financial reporting, being able to actually draft. It doesn't have to be as comprehensive as a 10Q or a 10K, but draft some, financial statements and being able to actually use. Actually, my friends at Inescope, they're actually building a tool that will help you do all the disclosures and everything, right? So I think that's what I see AI also helping a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. I want to dive into that trust piece a little bit. And I think about like when I used ChatGPT like a year or two ago, I was trying to get some benchmarks and it gave me some like benchmark, I think, for ARR growth or something. And I was like, oh man, this is great, exactly what I need. And then I asked for the source and it gave me the source and I looked up the source and the source didn't exist. And I was like, oh, well, like this isn't any good anymore. Right. So I'm curious, kind of maybe start with you, Audrey. Like, how did you develop at least some semblance of trust in the platform, ChatGPT, like AI, whatever? How have you developed trust or not in it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Javi said it right. Like you just verify. So, I'll take what it says with a grain of salt and go back to my known reliable sources and kind of fact check that, that information is accurate. I think the model's learning over time too. The more I say, like, I want FASB sources, I want FASB, IRS, Big Four, information. I'm hoping that the model is learning to, take from those sources. But I agree, it's fun to play with, and I think the more, we do get accurate results and accurate answers, the more that trust, is built. But as an auditor, I'm always going to be skeptical. That's just kind of part of my nature, and so I think there'll always be a piece of me that, is just going to verify and fact check before relying on it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
hopefully with time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Javi, you had an interesting perspective when we talked about this. My kind of assumption has always been that, like, especially as accountants and even finance professionals, we tend to need things to be kind of 100% accurate. Like if it's not right, it's wrong, right? If I can't show my board financial statements that are right, then it's wrong. So it makes me like naturally distrust AI, but you had a bit of a different take on it when we talked about this.
I do, right? And maybe with the board it's a little bit different, right? Because you always want to be 100% right with the board. But, I go back to, and, I'm assuming that there's a lot of accountants on the call, right? Like I go back to the concept of materiality, right? Like, I don't think it always has to be 100% correct. There's a lot of, concept that, it has to be black and white, but, like there's concepts of materiality. And I think you have to take that into consideration. That's why in my mind is like, okay, that like, like you have to make sure that you're at least, like 95%. I don't know, like it will have to, like every company will have that risk tolerance a little bit different, right? But I think, in my mind, that's what's important, right? Like having that threshold that you can, like go by, right? Like the other thing
Yep.
is like always, tell my team, right? And again, going back to treating, like this new agent or AI employee that you have in your team, similar to what you do with your team, right? And I learned this from the COO at Rippling, right? And he was saying like, I don't micromanage. I'm just macro interested in everything that's happening, right? So the same concept, right?
Mm.
You have to be, like exactly what, like Otto was saying, right? Like, hey, first you have to understand what comes out of the AI tool, right? Like you have to really understand, because if you don't understand and you're not going to be able to actually explain to your CFO or to your board what is the answer, that's a mistake, right? Because ChatGPT or cloud is not going to come with you to those meetings. So first of all, you digest and really understand, and then try to, making sure that you verify that at least you think that the response is correct or good enough to be able to actually pass it along. So
Yeah, yeah, it seems like it's really good at giving us at least some kind of baseline. Like I can remember using it to like kind of I fed financials into it a while back and said like, give me summaries here, where the things growing, things like that. And it gave a pretty kind of basic summary, but obviously it couldn't tell me things like where that growth is coming from or explain it in a way that I would want to present it to the board. I can't just take it and send it to the board, but it at least was helpful for giving me a baseline and maybe like triggering things for me to go look at kind of a step deeper.
yeah.
Good question. Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, sorry, Stefan. That brought me some memories when, we have this concept in my old company at Flexport that's called Sketchy Baby. We always try to get like a perfect product out, right? And sometimes when you start, probably happened to you both, right? Like when you have a blank piece of paper, it's like, okay, I gotta do this, and it's just so hard, right? Using AI to have that first, exactly what you say, I call it sketchy baby, first draft, baselines, like, getting some ideas in your head, that saves you so much time, right? And I do encourage everyone to really use AI to do that, right? Because it gives you a first start that you can actually take on and then develop anything that you had in your mind. But the first 0 to 1 is so complicated sometimes that ChatGPT and all the other AI tools have been so useful on that piece.
Yeah, I find it really helpful like prompting myself, right? Like if I can't quite get the creative juices flowing, can you at least like, hey, I'm trying to come up with this topic for, our offsite next week. give me some direction, right? And like they're all pretty bad ideas, but at least then it's like, oh, let me take it from here, right? Like that's helpful.
Yeah.
Audrey, I'm gonna jump to back to you. We talked about like how Ramp actually like encouraged you to use AI and ChatGPT. Can you talk about like how that happened at Ramp and kind of how that's pushed you?
Yeah, so I mean, our product, is centered around automation, and we're really trying to continue to find ways to bring AI more, into our own product. But, it was encouraged, from my manager to start thinking about how we can use, ChatGPT more or other tools. Um, one of them being, with our flux analysis, how can we automate some of this work? I know we're not quite there 100% yet, Stephen. You were kind of, touching on this, but like today our team is spending time looking at account by account, month over month, figuring out which accounts, tripped our threshold
Okay.
in either an increase or decrease, and then digging into the data to find the vendor, the department that is, actually the driver of that movement. But, how can we use AI to, do some of that kind of work for us? It's not going to really give us that true insight as to maybe why we overspent on a vendor or why a department overspent, in marketing expenses. But, it can at least give us that start, to where we need to dig in further. So, it was encouraged, as a company that is really trying to use AI in our own product, like to find more ways to use it in our other processes that are maybe outside of the Ramp product. Um, and again, like even simple things, like I'm trying to uh, say my payroll system, I'm downloading this report and it's in horrible format that I can't pivot or do any sort of, easy formulas on. And so how can I use AI to like take that data, format it in a way that is, easier to then do my reporting on, or that's more digestible so I can already get the insights I need out of it. Chat has also been really great with helping me come up with Excel formulas. I want to see this piece of information from this data set, like what formula can I use in Excel to give me that information? And so, it was definitely encouraged for our team to start finding those ways to use it more. And we still have a lot of work to do, but it's been fun to kind of think through it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great application. I've used it similarly. I had a bank statement a while back and just like a few hundred vendors and like really bad data, right? And like put it through ChatGPT and was like, hey, parse out these vendors for me relative to these numbers. And it took a few like cycles and prompts. But eventually I was like, oh, this is great. This saved me like hours of doing this manually in
Yeah.
Excel. So you can start to kind of see the initials there of, like kind of what's coming.
Yeah, and I said it earlier, but like, Ramp's growing really fast. We are, shipping new products all the time. We're growing our customer base, just the volume of transactions is growing. My accounting team's kind of staying the same. So we need to find ways to, automate and continue to grow with Ramp. And that means bringing on more automation and finding ways to use these new tools that are coming out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common across most of the teams here, I'm guessing, is we're getting like asked to do more and like frankly like with less as well. Like
Yeah.
teams not scaling and like being forced to automate, use AI, use other just even like process improvements to be able to help the company scale. So it's a push for me. Like it's good for me to around myself to be looking for areas where I can use AI, but also like telling that to my team as well and pushing my team like, hey, how can we be automating more things? How can we use AI? Like what tools should we adopt? Really kind of push it down instead of just motivating myself to do that. I want to go to the audience for questions in a bit, but um, the other thing I want to talk through, we talked a bit through like trust. I'm thinking especially about like maybe the accounting like industry as a whole. We've got lots of CPAs we're expecting to like retire. I think it's like 75% in the next 15 years is the stat. And I'm curious both like with AI, but in general, maybe like we'll start with you, Javi, and then Audrey, like what do you think the industry should be doing to help kind of influence and help, I don't know if like we revive the industry, make it cool again, but like how can we kind of empower the industry to stay kind of where it needs to be, even as accountants retire and get out of the industry?
Yeah, I think I have the concept of strategic accounting, right? Like there's a lot of strategic finance and like finance, like a strategy like of banking and but in my mind, accountants can add so much value really thinking through like how to present the numbers in a compliant way, right? And there's a lot of thinking behind the way that you know, categorize, allocate, and present the numbers. And I think there's a lot of work that is still is going to be, you know, I wouldn't rely on AI. I will rely on suggestions, right? But I think that's in my mind extremely interested. You know, I remember on my days on Instagram and Flexboard, and even now that I am a CFO, right? Like the way that you think about gross margin, the way you can leverage, what's compliant and what's not, and how do you want to really think about the numbers? Always, you know, like being in the boundaries of the compliance accounting. That's amazing, right? I do. Well, you were talking before. I do think, you know, like going back to the example of the flux analysis, right? I think today I will expect, right, that the AI can do a flux analysis and tell you not the story behind the numbers, but you know, we talked about this before, right, Stephen? Let's say, you know, like I received a deposit and, you know, I hits my income statement instead of like canceling my balance sheet, right? This, you know, like AI should be able to actually tell me, hey, this is a wrong categorization of this entry, and just like put it on the right way, right? So I will not expect AI to give me the entire story that I will talk to the board, or you know, if I'm fundraising to the investors, but I will expect AI to be able to actually do that tactical journal entry checks and balances to make sure that I don't spend time on that, right? And then I think you know the accountants will be able to actually have that more strategic mindset, make it more fun, being super critical for the CFO, and being able to actually add a lot of value to the companies, even when the companies are private, or as they're going through the IPO. And Audrey, you've gone through that, but I did a lot of work on the Twitter IPO as well, and you know, really thinking through what can we do to make sure that the numbers are correct but attractive. That's super important.
Yep, agreed.
Fun.
Yeah.
I'm fun.
And fun, right? Yeah, exactly. Is, you know, hopefully this frees it up to have a little more fun as well. But yeah, I think that flux analysis is super key. It's something that I've spent lots of manual hours doing myself. And one thing we've worked hard to build at Rillet, like since we own the financials as well, is we can kind of keep that data secure while providing that flux analysis kind of insights to you really kind of cleanly. So I think there's a lot more we can do there in the future as well. Maybe Audrey, over to you real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say like the flux analysis is kind of the fun part of my job. Like I like the analysis. I like spending time understanding the story and why, why did marketing spend, grow against revenue, or, things like that. Like I want to dig into these details and spend time there. So it's like, how can we reduce the amount of time it takes on that data entry, the time we're spending crunching numbers in Excel, all the long hours ticking and tying financial statements, like let's automate that. And I want to, see my team. I want to personally spend more time, in the doing the strategic analytical work, that actually it helps drive decision making. So to your point, like I hope that starts changing the persona of accounting and, financial, analysis. Like let's make it fun and kind of hopefully gone are the days of the like really long hours, crunching numbers and like I said, ticking and tying financial statements. I want to be able to dig into the data and tell stories and, explain to management, why we spent so much more on this, in this department this month. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I'll say like maybe this is like my geriatric, personality coming out, but my fear of automating too much like the simple stuff is that like junior employees won't get a chance to really like build their chops, so to speak. Of like me spending early in my career hours in Excel and building the model and like really taught me like the levers and where things come from and like how the model operates and where things are broken and like attention to detail, going like, oh, forgot to add that sum formula, all the way down the rows, right? So like there's all those little things you learn early in your career. I'm worried that a lot of the automation will prevent folks from learning that. And I hope I'm wrong, right? I think the counter argument to that, I'm sure when Excel came out, some of our parents, right, were like, oh no, no more calculators, right? These kids are screwed, So like I know there's kind of both there, but I hope we can both automate things while still giving junior employees a way to like grow and scale and really learn like the nuts and bolts of accounting. I want to open to audience questions real quick. We had a question from the chat that came in from Ian, where he said, like, how do you think about safety and security with AI and being able to like, share sensitive financial data or something like that? Like, how have you guys thought about that?
Uh, No, I was gonna say, and I think there's people responding as well, right? Like I do agree, like I don't tend to use too much of my own data into, the systems, right? Because I normally don't yeah, don't do it just because I haven't spent too much time really thinking through what is the potential risk out there. So I'd rather just not do it. I'm very sure that there's a lot of companies that do the same, right? I think at some point, it should be, like we all work in the cloud, right? And no one has wondered if Google is just taking your data when you have like all your Google Sheets.
I worry about it sometimes,
Yeah, you worry, but you don't,
my
really
AI is just
stop.
sitting in these Google Sheets, right? But yeah, I agree. I don't really worry about it.
Yeah, I think you have to be cautious and then, like try to, mitigate the risk by really thinking what you are doing. But, like that's my general mindset at this point.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I'm the same way as Javi. Like anytime I'm using a tool like Chat GPT or Cloud, like I do leave out that personal information, that business information, like change amounts, change names, keep it high level. But with software solutions that are incorporating AI, like Ramp, for example, like we do allow customers to opt out of having their information included in, some products we have this kind of price intelligence product that, compares transactions across all of our vendors within the Ramp ecosystem and can kind of help, a company know if they're spending on software, around average or if they're overspending, underspending, where they have some room to negotiate. But, customers can opt out of that if they're not comfortable with their information being included in that model. Um, we also have, data privacy agreements in place with any other third-party tools that are being leveraged in our product. So, hopefully we can establish some trust that, the data is, secure. It's not gonna, we're not selling it. We're really just using it to benefit, all of our customers. But yeah, it'll definitely take time, I think, to build trust.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Because even if you do the like the business subscription with ChatGPT, they say they won't train their models on the data, but I'm still like, really? You know? Maybe it's just a skeptic or accounting, in me or whatever, but definitely cynical on that front. Yeah. I mean, I obviously think if your data did get out there somewhere, you'd have much, space to sue them, but like I don't want to mess with that, right? It's much better to be safe than sorry and be kind of thoughtful and sensitive, with that data. Um, any other questions or thoughts from the audience before we kind of wrap up here? This has been really good. I'm excited to kind of do some more applications of this based on Javi and Audrey, kind of what you have shared, using ChatGPT and other tools. Um, as we, kind of get final questions, any other like parting thoughts or things you think about? Maybe Javi, start with you, but when you think about like accounting AI, maybe what you want the future to look like, what do you think about?
Yeah, and it's funny, Stephen. I was thinking that you can send this recording to your product team and really have all these flags analysis and everything ready to roll next week. So there's two things as we are going through the well, do you want to answer that question before we wrap up?
Yep. Yeah, we had a question about within finance, what are some use cases you're seeing high adoption of AI in? I'll say from my side, I see some high adoption in like benchmarking. So where folks will like load their benchmarks into ChatGPT or kind of similar tools and get benchmarks that way. I've seen it with like helping write kind of board memos, at least getting started. And then NVIDIA had a report recently. It's used quite extensively in financial services. And I think that's quite a lot on like collections and automating those pieces. I think financial services is pretty far ahead in terms of AI. I think a lot of the more like corporate finance folks like ourselves, it's mostly through tools, and I think that's where it will be for a while.
Yeah, I agree. And then, like if the question is also more focused on use cases on the finance department in different companies, I think finance operations, like automating all the AP, AR, collections, payments, and vendor management, and that's in my mind is just like very that there is it is far in the journey of AI, and I think it saves a bunch of time. And the same thing with technical accounting memos and accounting reporting. Getting that sketchy baby and getting that first ideas that you can actually start building off of. That's probably something that everyone can start using today, and they don't have to wait until like, oh, why, there's no dream. It's just actually happening right now.
Yep. Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. All right. Any more audience questions? And then let's do some closing thoughts real quick. Javi, maybe we can start with you. Like when you think about the future of AI in accounting, what do you hope for in terms of like AI automating some of your current job?
Yeah, I think, like the pure journal entry and, like manual reconciliations and all the tasks behind getting the first set of the books closed on a timely manner, that will be something that I think we should not spend too much time doing these days,
Yep.
right? I'm hoping that at some point you can have that month-end close process very much automated, making sure that the journal entry check and balances are correct, to do your there I gotta admit it's been a while since I was doing all this stuff, right? But I remember it was painful going through, it was like the Groundhog Dog movie, right? Like every month it's like going through bank reconciliations, all the accounting checklists. So I'm hoping that there is somehow AI that can actually have that first draft or your month-end close ready to go and Audrey said it a couple times, right? And your team really expending time thinking through, okay, that this makes sense, that doesn't make sense, why marketing expense went up, but why we went down, is everything correct, how we can actually tell the story behind what happened, how we can really think about the reforecasting process based on what we have. Like that's where I see the value of the team, but all the month-end close itself and the checklist, that should be hopefully very automated at some point,
Yeah.
very soon.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Audrey, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, Javi, you said kind of all my thoughts, but I want to get to a place where, AI is providing, real-time dashboards and analytics, real-time insights into where we're spending and where we might be overspending or underspending based on our business goals and needs. It'd be cool to have a little bit more AI involved in like predictive analytics, like forecasting trends, cash flow or revenue. That's where I want to spend more time. I want my team to be able to spend more time there. And so, again, hoping AI can get to a place where, we have that readily available. And we're not so, bogged down by that month-end close process.
Yep. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I don't know if any of you saw the Cognition Labs recently released Devin, and it's just like it's literally like a bot in your Slack, and you can say like, "Hey, I found a bug here. Go fix this bug," and supposedly it will go fix the bug for you. And it's supposed to be like, I don't know how it works in actual practice, but you can at least like see the future a little bit there. And I'm hopeful we'll kind of have the same thing, on the accounting side someday, where I can like, as if I'm talking to my junior accountant, hey, prep this journal entry, and it speaks it back. And I'm like, okay, not quite what I meant, like do this instead. And then, I can say, hey, where'd revenue land this month? And then say, like, not what I expected, like really have a conversation with it the way you would with the junior employee. That's kind of where I expect and want it to go. I've heard people like want to give, say, like, I don't know, their CEO access or something with the chat bots with the financials. And like that freaks me out. Because I know as soon as like my boss is asking questions, he's going to get responses that I'm then going to have to explain, right? I'm like, wait, everything is context, right? Everything is context. I'm hopeful that I can still provide context, but at least for me, I want to be able to chat with my financials in that way and also be able to like encourage my, AI agents, whatever they're called in the future, to manipulate the financials in a way and make changes and things and really like command that, perspective. This has been awesome. Javi, Audrey, thank you kind of, very much for sharing your thoughts, perspectives. Cool to see how you're using AI today in your workflows, and cool to kind of think about how we can use that as well. So that's all we've got for today. For folks that came from both Rillet and Ramp, thank you for jumping in. I hope you have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and good luck on your, annual wrap up and closing your financials for real. And so we'll see you soon. Till next time. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.